Each patch in Keyscape contains a set of custom controls that we access via these different page tabs up here. Now, they're mainly designed as performance controls to help you get the most out of how the instrument will respond to the way you're playing it. But we also get high-quality creative effects, and they vary from instrument to instrument. We're going to cover the important ones in these videos. Now, the main page tab over here generally contains mix controls, performance controls, timbre controls, and sometimes effects controls, like this one where we see reverb over here. And each patch also contains 2 additional pages for specifically designed custom controls. In the case of this piano, it's an EQ page and a compression page. Now, each patch also contains a settings page and an info page, and these are the same on all the presets. So let's look at these. We've touched on them in some of the earlier videos, but let's just cover it a bit more deeply. So here, we can set the polyphony, the number of voices that are used by this patch. And this is not only referring to notes that are actually played, but when they're sustaining. Even if your finger's not down on the note, if they're sustaining, it counts as a voice. We can transpose by octave, and we can offset the gain here if we want. We can set the pitch bend range, and we have a unique value for the up and the down range. And we can even adjust the tuning. Equal temperament is the normal tuning, but we can get custom scales, and they usually tell us how many tones are in the scale, like that. So let's stick with the regular tuning for now. And thinning we've looked at, and the velocity we've looked at. We can set this to match the response of specific keyboards, but we can also adjust it manually, and this will adjust a floor at the bottom, and this will adjust a ceiling at the top. And here we can curve the response, and we use the lock button so that it'll remain with that setting when we switch presets. So I'm going to go back to my Novation SL Mark II preset, and I'm going to leave it locked. And the info, as we've seen before, gives some performance controls, tips, and info on the instrument. So let's start here on the main page on the piano. Now, you'll notice that in the performance controls, we have release noise, and this refers to the noise the keys make when you lift your hands up, which are a very characteristic element of what acoustic pianos sound like. So you'll hear that I can dial up the amplitude of it, how much of it we want to hear, versus none. So it adds character to the sound, and here it is in a part. Now we have this T button over here, which increases the transition time from the regular note-on samples and the release samples, and it makes the key release feel a bit looser, and it feels like a bit more of a complex interplay of the different tones. Here it is with this on. Now we have pedal noise as well, and this emulates the noise that a sustain pedal makes, and you can see when I'm pressing the pedal here. And of course we can dial it up or down. So a bit of it adds character to the sound as well. Now the velocity sensitivity knob controls how much the MIDI velocity affects the dynamic range. So you can see the velocities of the notes I'm playing here. I'll dial this down, and you can watch the velocities, and they're going to be pretty even. As I hit softer and louder, they'll be relatively even. Versus when this is up high, we get a much wider dynamic range between soft and loud. So somewhere in the middle is pretty natural, but you can adjust it to taste. So let's put on some reverb with this piano sound. We can dial in the amount that we want, the length of the reverb. We have low and high, and shimmer adds a kind of movement in the higher end. And we have EQ and compression, which are fairly self-explanatory, and these vary from model to model. Here we have a low boost and a low cut, which allow us to boost and cut at the same frequency, which allows for a kind of complex EQ curve. So we turn it on with this button over here, and I'll bring up, let's say, the left hand by boosting this. So you can really shape the response of it. Now, in this particular model, we have a high boost and a width control, and then a high cut. Now we have denoise controls, which refers to the noise in the recording chain, not the noise from the actual instruments like pedal and release noises, but noise that's created electronically through the recording. So we can apply noise reduction as strongly or mildly as we want with these. Let's look at the compression. Now we turn it on here, and we have pretty standard controls. The one thing that you might not be familiar with is the sustain control. And it controls both the threshold and the output gain of the whole compressor effect. So the higher settings lowers the threshold and adds makeup gain. So let me just lower the level, the output level here, and we can experiment with it, and you'll hear how this will enhance the compression. So it adds a different kind of character to the compression. Now we have tape emulation as well, and the age control emulates the way older tape stock loses high end over time. So this is the kind of compression that we get when we record to analog tape. So as we dial this up, we're going to get darker sound. So when it's fully left, we get the brightest sound, and as we turn it clockwise, the tone gets darker. And we have, again, a threshold and a gain and a pad as well to attenuate how much is being fed through this tape compression. Let's look at another piano because the sounds and the controls aren't the exact same on each of them. Now here on the main page, and you can see the samples are loading because I don't have sample thinning enabled, we have character control. And this allows us to choose between overall tonal choices, but it's interesting choosing these different settings in conjunction with this color shift knob. And what this does is, as we dial it up, the samples are pitch shifted up or down and then transposed to compensate. So it creates an interesting kind of harmonic interplay, harmonic changes. So here's the same part with this different piano sound. That's a nice dark kind of sound. We can get bright sounds as well by shifting in the opposite direction. Maybe to cut through a mix, but for a nice dark warm sound, one of these darker settings and transposing down is a nice effect. So those are some of the main custom controls for the pianos, and we'll continue with more in the next video.